The vast emptiness of deep space stretched before the TNS Artemis, humanity's most advanced diplomatic vessel. Captain Elena Torres stood at her command station, dark eyes fixed on the holographic display showing an approaching ship of unknown origin. 20 years of Special Forces experience before accepting this command told her this was no coincidence. They were being hunted. Unknown vessel on intercept course, Captain. Lieutenant Sarah Chen reported from Tactical, her fingers dancing across the neural interface. Configuration doesn't match any known species in our database. Torres nodded, keeping her expression neutral. The Artemis may have looked like a standard diplomatic vessel, but that was precisely the point. Beneath its civilian exterior lay humanity's most sophisticated military technology, carefully hidden from both allies and potential enemies. Status of our masking systems? Torres asked, though she already knew the answer. Everything had to be documented for the record. Operating at full capacity, Captain. We're broadcasting the approved primitive energy signature, Commander David Rodriguez confirmed from engineering. To their sensors, we should appear to be running on basic fusion technology. The approaching vessel grew larger on their screens. Its design was predatory. All sharp angles and weapon ports poorly disguised as sensor arrays. Torres had seen enough slave ships in her career to recognize one, even if this particular configuration was new. All hands, initiate protocol shadow. Torres commanded through the ship's neural network. Throughout the vessel, 30 crew members, all hand-picked Special Forces operators, began their carefully rehearsed deception. The alien vessel's first shot came as no surprise. A brilliant beam of energy struck the Artemis' primary engines, exactly where they expected. The ship shuddered convincingly, thanks to Rodriguez's precise control of the inertial dampeners. Direct hit to main engines. Chen called out, playing her part perfectly. We're losing power. Torres allowed a carefully calculated amount of fear to enter her voice as she activated the ship-wide comm. All hands, prepare to be boarded. Offer no resistance. The underlying neural message to her crew carried very different instructions. The alien vessel's tractor beam engaged, pulling the seemingly helpless Artemis into its massive docking bay. Through the view screens, Torres studied their captors as they approached. The aliens were tall, reptilian creatures with iridescent scales and cybernetic augmentations. Their movements spoke of absolute confidence, the bearing of those who had never faced serious resistance. Primitive vessel secured, the alien commander's voice boomed through their communication system, automatically translated by the Artemis's AI. Prepare for boarding and processing. Torres watched as her crew played their roles flawlessly. Scientists cowered, diplomats pleaded, and security personnel made futile shows of resistance with outdated weapons, all while their neural interfaces gathered detailed scans of the alien vessel's interior, defenses, and crew. The boarding party moved with military precision, but their arrogance was obvious to Torres's trained eye. They didn't even conduct detailed scans of their prisoners, relying on their initial assessment of the Artemis's technological level. A fatal mistake. These humans are even more primitive than reported, the alien commander sneered, mandibles clicking in apparent amusement. They will fetch a good price in the outer colonies. Their physical capabilities are impressive, even if their technology is lacking. Torres allowed herself to be roughly handled as they were led to holding cells, maintaining the appearance of a defeated captain. Through the neural network, she monitored her crew's status. Every step they took through the alien vessel revealed more of its secrets: security systems, crew movements, power distribution, all filed away for later use. In their holding cells, the frightened humans huddled together, appearing to seek comfort in numbers. In reality, they were establishing a secure local neural network, compiling their gathered intelligence into a comprehensive tactical assessment. Full scan complete, Captain. Chen sub-vocalized through their secure link. Their technology is advanced, but their security protocols are fundamentally flawed. They rely too heavily on quantum encryption without understanding its full implications. Torres acknowledged with a subtle eye movement. The aliens had no idea that each of their prisoners carried more computing power in their neural interfaces than the entire slave ship systems combined. Humanity had learned long ago to hide its true capabilities. "They're taking us to something called Processing Station Alpha," Rodriguez reported through the network. Based on their communications, it's a major hub in their slave trade operations. Perfect. Exactly what they had hoped for when they'd allowed themselves to be captured. This wasn't just about preventing their own enslavement. It was about finding and dismantling the heart of a slave empire that had terrorized this sector for centuries. As their captors celebrated their easy victory, Torres allowed herself a small smile. The real operation was just beginning. Sometimes, the greatest weapon wasn't overwhelming force or advanced technology. It was being underestimated by your enemy. Through the neural network, she sent a simple message to her crew. Phase 1 complete. Prepare for Phase 2. The response came back as a wave of acknowledgments, each accompanied by the controlled excitement of Special Forces operators about to do what they did best. The aliens had thought they were capturing primitive humans for their slave markets. Instead, they had just invited aboard 30 of humanity's most elite operators, equipped with technology far beyond their comprehension. Their overconfidence would be their undoing. As the alien vessel jumped to faster-than-light travel, Torres closed her eyes, appearing to rest. In reality, she was reviewing the tactical data flowing through her neural interface. The pieces were falling into place. Soon, very soon, these slavers would learn why underestimating humanity was the last mistake many species ever made. 48 hours into their captivity aboard the slave ship Dominion, Captain Alina Torres lay on her cell's hard bunk, appearing to sleep while her neural interface processed the flood of data from her crew. Their captors, who called themselves the Creks, had grown increasingly lax in their security protocols, convinced their human prisoners were nothing more than primitive beings awaiting processing. Security analysis complete. Lieutenant Chen's thoughts whispered through their neural network. They rotate guards every 6 hours, but leave blind spots in their sensor coverage for approximately 40 seconds during shift changes. Torres acknowledged with an imperceptible eye movement. Through her neural interface, she watched as Commander Rodriguez's scans mapped the vessel's power distribution network. The Crex's overconfidence had allowed him to access maintenance ducts under the guise of cleaning duties, a task they considered beneath them. "You won't believe what I found in their database," Dr. Maya Santos, their xenobiologist, transmitted. Her thoughts carried a mix of horror and determination. They've enslaved over 30 species across 12 star systems. Some have been in captivity for generations, modified through selective breeding to enhance traits the Creks find profitable. Torres processed this information while maintaining her facade of defeated slumber. Their mission had just grown significantly larger than anticipated. This wasn't just about preventing Earth's discovery. It was about ending an empire built on suffering. Lieutenant Marcus Wong's thoughts joined the neural conversation. Their cybernetic augmentations are impressive, but flawed. They've sacrificed flexibility for raw power. More importantly, they all operate on the same quantum frequency. One targeted pulse could disrupt their entire command structure. Through the transparent barrier of their cell, Torres observed a group of Creks guards escorting new prisoners past their section. The aliens were small, bioluminescent beings that moved with fluid grace despite their chains. Their eyes met Torres's briefly, carrying centuries of pain and resignation. "Those are the Lumini," Santos supplied through the network. According to the database, they were one of the first species the Creks enslaved. Their natural ability to process complex mathematical equations makes them valuable as living computers. Commander Rodriguez's thoughts carried barely contained excitement. "Captain, I've finished mapping their engine configuration. Their faster-than-light drive is remarkably efficient, but it has a critical vulnerability. The quantum field stabilizers require perfect synchronization. Even a microsecond of disruption would force them to drop out of FTL. Torres integrated this information into their evolving plan. Through their neural network, she could feel her crew's growing understanding of their enemy's weaknesses. The Krex's technological advancement had bred complacency, leading them to overlook fundamental security principles. New data from Processing Station Alpha, Chen reported. It's not just a slave processing center. It's their central command hub. The Krex operate on a hierarchical network. All major decisions flow through the station's quantum computers. This was exactly the kind of intelligence they had hoped to gather. The Krex's centralized command structure, meant to ensure absolute control, would become their greatest vulnerability. A commotion in the corridor drew Torres's attention. A Krex officer was berating a group of enslaved maintenance workers, his cybernetic implants glowing with apparent rage. The slaves, a species of silicon-based life forms, absorbed the abuse with practiced submission. Their entire empire runs on slave labor, Santos observed. They've become so dependent on it that they've lost the ability to maintain their own technology. Each species is specifically chosen and conditioned for certain tasks. Torres watched as the maintenance crew shuffled past their cell. Her enhanced vision caught something interesting. Beneath their seemingly broken demeanor, some of the slaves moved with subtle purpose. Not everyone was as defeated as they appeared. I've detected low-level quantum communications among the slave populations, Wong reported. Very sophisticated. It's piggybacking on the Krex's own network. They're organizing, but lack the means to effectively resist. A plan was forming in Torres's mind. The Krex had built their empire on the assumption of their absolute superiority, never considering that their carefully categorized slave species might have hidden depths of their own. Rodriguez, how long until we reach the processing station? Torres subvocalized. Approximately 36 hours at current FTL speeds, Captain. They're taking a circuitous route to avoid something they call the dead zones, regions of space they seem genuinely afraid of. Interesting. Even slave empires had their bogeymen. That information might prove useful later. Through their neural link, Torres outlined the next phase of their operation. They would need precise timing, perfect coordination, and the element of surprise. Most importantly, they would need to find a way to communicate with the other slave species without alerting their captors. Begin fabrication of the quantum pulse generators, she ordered. Use the maintenance access you've mapped, Rodriguez. Santos, I want detailed biological profiles of every slave species on board. We need to know who can help and how. Wong, start working on a way to piggyback our own signals onto their slave communication network. Chen, keep mapping their security patterns. We'll need multiple escape routes when things go hot. Her crew acknowledged their orders with practiced efficiency. To the Krex guards watching through the cell barriers, they saw only defeated prisoners accepting their fate. They couldn't detect the complex plans being formed through the neural network, or the sophisticated analysis being performed by technology far beyond their understanding. The Krex had made the same mistake as countless others throughout human history. They had assumed that visible technology represented the limits of human capability. They were about to learn why that assumption had proven fatal to so many would-be conquerors. As Torres closed her eyes again, a slight smile played across her lips. In 36 hours, the Krex would learn that they hadn't captured primitive humans for their slave markets. They had invited aboard a highly trained special forces team who specialized in turning enemies' assumptions into weapons. The real question wasn't whether they would succeed, but how many slave species they would free in the process. The moment arrived without fanfare. Captain Elena Torres opened her eyes at precisely 300 ship time, when the Krex guard rotation was at its weakest. Through the neural network, she sensed her crew's ready alertness. 30 minds united in purpose, each knowing their role in what was to come. All teams, execute Phase 3. Torres commanded through their secure link. Remember, minimal casualties. We're here to liberate, not exact revenge. The first sign that something was wrong came from the ship's environmental systems. Commander Rodriguez had spent days manipulating maintenance protocols, making minor adjustments that seemed random but now worked in perfect concert. The lighting in the prisoner sections flickered, then dimmed to emergency levels. Environmental controls compromised. A Krex voice announced over the ship's comm system, switching to auxiliary power. That was exactly what they had planned for. As systems transferred to backup power, Lieutenant Wong's carefully crafted virus activated. For a fraction of a second, the quantum frequency controlling the Krex's cybernetic implants wavered. The effect was instantaneous. Throughout the ship, their captors stumbled, their augmentations temporarily disrupted. In that moment of confusion, Torres's team moved with practiced precision. The cell doors, their locks tied to the same compromised power system, clicked open. Neural disruptors active, Wong confirmed through their link. They'll be operating at 30% efficiency for the next 10 minutes. Torres stepped out of her cell, her movements fluid and purposeful. The nearest guard, his cybernetic enhancements sputtering, reached for his weapon. She moved faster than his impaired systems could track, disabling him with a precise strike to a weak point Dr. Santos had identified in their physiology. Throughout the detention block, similar scenes played out. The Special Forces team, no longer pretending to be helpless primitives, demonstrated just how advanced human combat training could be. Their neural interfaces gave them perfect coordination, each operator moving in concert with the others. Control room secured, Lieutenant Chen reported. Accessing main systems now. These quantum computers are impressive, but they never considered defending against human encryption methods. Torres made her way through the corridors, dealing with resistance efficiently but non-lethally. They needed the Krex alive, not out of mercy, but because their cybernetic implants were necessary for accessing certain ship systems. Captain, Santos called through the neural net, the slave species are responding to our transmissions. The Lumini have already spread the word through their mathematical communication network. They're ready to help. This was the crucial moment. Their plan relied not just on overpowering the Krex, but on coordinating with thousands of slaves, each species with its own capabilities and constraints. Through their neural interfaces, Torres's team began directing this impromptu rebellion. The silicon-based maintenance crews, following Wong's transmitted instructions, began sabotaging key systems in ways that appeared to be equipment failures. The Lumini, their mathematical abilities now turned against their masters, started corrupting the ship's navigation algorithms. Multiple hull breaches detected. The ship's AI announced, its voice carrying the same arrogant tones as its Krex masters. Emergency protocols engage. That's our cue, Rodriguez transmitted. Initiating system lockout. The true sophistication of humanity's technology revealed itself. While the Krex had focused on raw computational power, humans had developed their systems with an emphasis on adaptation and creative problem-solving. Rodriguez's programs, far more advanced than anything the Krex had believed humans capable of, began systematically taking control of ship functions. We're picking up distress calls, Chen reported. 3 Krex warships responding. ETA 20 minutes. Torres smiled. Perfect timing. Wong, begin broadcast. Across every frequency the Krex used to maintain their slave empire, a message began transmitting. It carried proof of the Krex's vulnerabilities, detailed instructions for exploiting them, and something even more powerful, hope. Every slave ship, every mining colony, every processing center would receive the message, encoded in ways specific to each enslaved species. The Lumini have confirmed successful transmission, Santos reported. They're already seeing responses from other slave ships. This is spreading faster than we anticipated. A massive tremor ran through the ship as something fundamental changed in its drive systems. Processing Station Alpha just disappeared from our navigation sensors, Rodriguez announced. The Lumini's calculations worked. The station's quantum fields have collapsed. They'll be blind for at least 6 hours. Torres made her way to the bridge, where the Krex captain was being held by her team. The alien commander's cybernetic implants sparked uselessly, his mandibles clicking in impotent rage. "You primitive vermin," he snarled through the translator. "You have no idea what you've done. The Empire will crush this pathetic rebellion. Your Empire made two fundamental mistakes," Torres replied calmly. "First, you assumed that visible technology represented the limits of advancement. Second, you forgot that slavery breeds innovation, not in the masters, but in those who dream of freedom." Through the neural network, reports continued flowing in. Across the sector, slave ships were going dark as their captive crews rose up. Processing centers found their quantum networks compromised by mathematical proofs the Lumini had spent generations perfecting in secret. Maintenance crews, commanded by beings the Krex had considered little more than biological machines, turned the Empire's own technology against it. "All hands, prepare for Phase 4, Torres commanded. The humans had struck the first blow, but the real fight was just beginning. The Krex Empire would not fall easily, but they had achieved something even more important than tactical victory. They had given hope to beings who had forgotten its taste. They had shown that even the most powerful empire could be vulnerable. Most importantly, they had demonstrated why humanity had survived countless attempts at conquest throughout its history. Because humans never accepted chains, whether physical or psychological. As the stolen ship accelerated away from the approaching Krex warships, Torres allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Their mission had evolved from survival to revolution, and she couldn't think of a more worthy cause. The next few days would reshape this sector of space, and humanity would be remembered not as primitive slaves, but as the spark that ignited an empire's fall. The captured Krex vessel, now renamed Liberty, dropped out of FTL Drive at the edge of what the slavers called the dead zone. Captain Torres stood on the bridge, watching as data streamed through her neural interface. In the 7 days since their escape, the rebellion had spread like wildfire through the Krex Empire. "Status report," she commanded, addressing both her human crew and the representatives of 5 former slave species who now formed part of her command staff. 3 more processing centers have fallen, Lieutenant Chen reported from her tactical station. The Lumini's mathematical attacks are proving impossible for the Krex to counter. They never imagined their living computers would turn their own calculations against them. Zix, the Lumini representative, pulsed with subtle bioluminescence, their species' expression of satisfaction. "We spent generations encoding rebellion into our equations. The Krex thought they were forcing us to optimize their slave trade. Instead, we were mapping every weakness in their empire." Torres nodded, studying the strategic display. Across Krex space, red indicators showed systems in revolt. The silicon-based lithoids had turned their maintenance access into a weapon, sabotaging crucial infrastructure. The crystalline nexus had transformed their communication networks into weapons, using their natural resonance to disrupt Krex quantum systems. "Message from Earth Command," Rodriguez announced. "The fleet is ready. They're just waiting for our signal." This was the moment Torres had been preparing for. Humanity had maintained the facade of being a primitive species precisely for situations like this. While the Krex had watched Earth's visible technology, a vast fleet of advanced warships had been assembled in secret, hidden in dimensional pockets that the slavers' sensors couldn't detect. "The Krex are consolidating their forces," Chen reported. "Long-range scans show they're gathering a massive fleet near their homeworld. At least 300 capital ships. They're desperate," Santos added from her science station. "The biological data we're receiving shows elevated stress markers in their neural networks. Their entire society is based on slave labor. They literally don't know how to function without it." Torres turned to address Karn, the lithoid representative. His crystalline form sparkled under the bridge lights as he delivered his report. "Our people have sabotaged 60% of their automated manufacturing capacity. They can't repair or replace ships as quickly as we can disable them." New intelligence from the quantum network, the Lumini representative pulsed. "The Krex leadership is fracturing. Some want to negotiate, Others demand immediate retaliation. They've never faced coordinated resistance on this scale. Torres allowed herself a small smile. The Krex had built their empire on the assumption of absolute superiority, never considering that their carefully categorized slave species might have been playing a longer game. Each race had developed its own forms of resistance, waiting for the right moment to strike. Message from Commander Patel's task force, Chen announced. They've secured the primary shipyards in Sector 7. The freed Nexus engineers are already beginning modifications for the Liberation Fleet. This was another advantage the humans had brought to the rebellion. While other species had developed specialized forms of resistance, humanity's gift was adaptation and integration. They could take the best aspects of each species' capabilities and combine them in ways the Krex had never imagined. Signal from the dead zone, Rodriguez reported, his voice carrying a note of anticipation. The main view screen activated, showing a sight that would have been impossible just days ago. A vast fleet of ships hung in the void, vessels of human design incorporating technology from all the liberated species. Each ship represented a perfect fusion of multiple civilizations' innovations, crewed by mixed teams who combined their unique abilities. The Liberation Fleet is ready, Captain. Commander Sarah Martinez reported from the fleet flagship. 30 task forces, each combining human tactical doctrine with Lumini navigation, lithoid engineering, and Nexus communications. The Krex won't know what hit them. Torres addressed her combined human-alien bridge crew. The Krex built their empire by keeping species isolated, making each think they were alone in their captivity. That ends today. Humanity didn't come here just to free slaves. We came to help forge alliances. Through her neural interface, Torres could feel the excitement building among both her human crew and their alien allies. The Krex had dismissed humans as primitives, never realizing that Earth's apparent technological level was a carefully maintained deception. The reality of human advancement was about to be revealed. All ships prepare for dimensional shift, Torres commanded. The Liberation Fleet would emerge from the dead zone using technology the Krex had never dreamed possible, striking at the heart of their empire. Multiple quantum signatures detected, Chen reported. More slave ships are revolting. The Krex fleet is trying to respond, but they're scattered across too many systems. Torres watched as the tactical display updated, showing the progress of the rebellion. The Krex had built their society on the exploitation of other species' specialized abilities. Now those same species were combining their strengths in ways the slavers had never considered possible. Signal the fleet, Torres ordered. Initiation sequence for Operation Avalanche begins in 5 minutes. As her crew made final preparations, Torres reflected on how far they'd come from their initial capture. What had started as a mission to protect Earth had evolved into something far more significant: the liberation of dozens of species and the foundation of a new interstellar alliance. The Krex had thought they were capturing primitive humans to add to their collection of slaves. Instead, they had provided the catalyst needed to unite their captive species into an unstoppable force for freedom. As the Liberation Fleet prepared to jump, Torres knew they were about to demonstrate why underestimating humanity was always a fatal mistake. The real revolution was just beginning, and it would reshape this sector of space forever. The Liberation Fleet emerged from dimensional shift directly above the Krex homeworld, their arrival heralded by ripples in spacetime that the slavers' sensors couldn't comprehend. Captain Alina Torres stood on the Liberty's bridge, watching as hundreds of ships dropped into normal space, each vessel a testament to what freed species could accomplish together. Krex fleet responding exactly as predicted, Lieutenant Chen reported, her neural interface processing tactical data faster than any conventional system. They're falling into defensive formations around their orbital installations. Multiple quantum signatures detected, Rodriguez added from engineering. Their entire automated defense network is activating. Torres allowed herself a grim smile. Initiate broadcast on all frequencies. Throughout the Krex system, on every communication channel and quantum frequency, a message began playing. It wasn't just in the Krex language. It was simultaneously transmitted in the unique communication methods of every slave species they had ever captured. To the Krex Empire, Taurus's voice rang out, translated into dozens of forms. Your reign of slavery ends today. We gave you the opportunity to negotiate. You chose war. On her tactical display, Taurus watched as the Krex fleet commanders reacted with predictable arrogance. Their ships moved to surround the Liberation fleet, confident in their superior numbers and technology. They still don't understand, Zix, the Lumini representative, pulsed with mathematical amusement. They think this is a conventional battle. All ships, execute Operation Avalanche, Taurus commanded. The Liberation fleet's response defied conventional military doctrine. Instead of meeting the Krex fleet head-on, the ships began moving in complex patterns that seemed random to traditional tactical analysis. But there was nothing random about it. The Lumini's mathematical precision guided each ship's movement, creating interference patterns in space-time itself. The Lithoid's understanding of crystal harmonics, combined with human innovations in quantum field manipulation, generated cascading waves of energy that the Krex's defensive systems couldn't process. Their quantum networks are destabilizing, Chen reported with professional satisfaction. The Nexus's communications attack is working perfectly. Throughout the Krex fleet, ships began losing power as their quantum-based systems failed. The slavers had built their entire civilization on stolen technology they didn't fully understand. Now, that lack of understanding became their downfall. Message from the surface, Rodriguez announced. The Krex High Command is demanding our surrender. He paused, checking the data. Make that former High Command. We're receiving transmissions from multiple faction leaders now. Torres had expected this. The Krex society was hierarchical, maintained by their cybernetic implants' quantum links. As those links failed, centuries of suppressed internal conflicts were surfacing. Show me the planet, Torres ordered. The main view screen shifted to show the Krex homeworld. Massive cities stretched across its surface, every building and infrastructure component maintained by slave labor. But now, those slaves were rising up. The lithoid maintenance crews had spent generations mapping every critical system, waiting for this moment. Ground-based defense networks are offline, Chen reported. The lithoids' sabotage was perfect. They're not destroying anything, just shutting it all down. This had been a crucial part of their strategy. The goal wasn't to destroy the Krex civilization, but to force them to confront their dependence on slavery. Without their slaves, without their stolen technology, they would have to rebuild their society on a new foundation. Multiple surrenders coming in from Krex fleet commanders, Rodriguez announced. Their ships are powering down weapons. Torres nodded. Begin Phase 2. Deploy the negotiation teams. This was where humanity's role would shift from liberators to mediators. Teams of human diplomats, accompanied by representatives from each freed species, would begin the complex process of dismantling the slave empire and establishing a new interstellar alliance. Captain, Santos called from her station, we're detecting something unusual from the planet's surface. The Krex's biological readings, they're changing. Torres had been waiting for this. The Krex's cybernetic augmentations weren't just tools, they were integral to their biology. As the quantum networks failed, they were being forced to adapt, to remember how to function as purely biological beings. Their society is transforming before our eyes, Santos continued, fascinated. Without their implants' influence, we're seeing neural patterns we didn't know they were capable of. They're evolving. This was the true victory, not just liberation, but transformation. The Krex would survive, but they would have to rebuild without slaves, without their cybernetic crutches. They would have to learn to coexist as equals in the galactic community. Message from Earth Command, Chen reported. The rest of the human fleet is emerging from dimensional shift. They're ready to begin peacekeeping operations across former Krex space. Torres surveyed her bridge crew, humans, and former slaves working together in perfect harmony. What had started as a simple deception had led to the liberation of dozens of species and the fall of an empire that had dominated this sector for centuries. "Send word to all ships," Torres commanded. "The military phase of Operation Avalanche is complete. Begin humanitarian operations. Every former slave species is to be given the choice: return to their homeworld, remain where they are as free citizens, or join the new alliance we're forming." As the Liberation Fleet moved into position around the Krek's homeworld, Torres reflected on how far they'd come. The Kreks had thought they were capturing primitive humans, never realizing they were encountering a species that had turned deception and adaptation into an art form. But humanity's greatest strength hadn't been their hidden technology or military prowess. It had been their ability to unite different species, to show them that their unique abilities, combined with human innovation, could overcome any oppressor. "Captain," Rodriguez called out, "we're receiving transmissions from beyond the former Krek's empire. Other species. They want to join the alliance." Torres smiled. The fall of the Krek's empire wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. A new era of cooperation and advancement, built on the foundation of freedom and mutual respect. The stars themselves seemed brighter as the Liberation Fleet secured their victory. The age of slavery was over. The age of alliance had begun, and it had all started because some arrogant slavers had underestimated a supposedly primitive species called humans. In the end, that was humanity's greatest trick, not just overcoming their enemies, but transforming them into partners in a better future.